The music was pounding, the lights were blinding, and every eye in the room was locked on the model walking the narrow runway. It was Milan Fashion Week, high stakes, high profile. She took one step, then another, until her heel caught the edge of a misaligned platform panel. Her ankle twisted, she stumbled, and before the crowd could gasp, she hit the floor. The cameras kept flashing. Backstage, no one moved at first, not out of apathy, but because everyone was busy. Hairstylists curling, assistants zipping dresses, production runners shouting over the noise. It wasn't until a fellow model dropped to her knees beside her that help finally arrived. Moments later, the injured model was being carried away, her designer heels still strapped on, her career moment turned into a cautionary tale. This is the part of the industry we rarely see, because when we think about workplace safety, we imagine construction zones, hospitals, factories. We don't usually think of fashion shows, design studios, or production sets, but we should. Because behind every photo shoot, catwalk, and couture concept board lies a fast-paced, high-pressure environment filled with overlooked hazards. In this episode of What to Watch For, we're looking behind the curtain of the fashion industry, from the runways of Paris to the workrooms of Los Angeles, to reveal the risks facing models, designers, and the entire team that brings creative visions to life. Let's get into it. Real incidents, global examples, and the safety observations that are often missed in one of the world's most image-driven industries. It starts long before the lights come on. In a design studio in Seoul, a young stylist works through the night, crouched on the floor, cutting fabric patterns by hand. Her workstation doesn't have an ergonomic chair. Her lighting is poor. She's been using scissors and rotary blades for over 10 hours without a break. The pain in her wrist is sharp, but she ignores it. Deadlines don't move. By the time the collection is complete, she's developed a repetitive strain injury so severe she can't grip her toothbrush. This story isn't rare. Design work, especially in smaller studios, often happens in cramped, low-budget conditions where form matters more than function. The beauty is in the final product. The bruises behind the scenes don't make the front page. In Lagos, Nigeria, a group of models prepares for a regional fashion showcase. The venue is a converted warehouse. Power surges trip the lights twice. The floor has exposed cables and makeshift catwalk sections are bolted together at the last minute. One model stumbles on a metal plate that's lifted slightly higher than the rest. She twists her knee and spends the rest of the evening on crutches, still in full makeup and costume. In Sao Paulo, a fashion photographer is balancing on scaffolding to get the perfect overhead shot of a streetwear campaign. No safety rail, no spotter. A misstep sends him backward onto a lighting rig. He fractures his wrist, loses consciousness, and ends up in hospital. The production halts, but only for the day. Fashion shoots, especially editorial or outdoor sessions, are notorious for making it work. This often means climbing unstable ladders, shooting on rooftops with no barriers, or working in extreme temperatures for the sake of mood or mood board. Heat exhaustion, dehydration, trips and falls, sunstroke. These are common and preventable. In Tokyo, a model collapses mid-shoot after standing in 6-inch stilettos under studio lights for 5 hours straight. She hadn't eaten since the night before. The creative director tells everyone to take 5 without anyone calling for a medic. Now let's talk fittings. In a luxury boutique in Paris, a seamstress slices her finger open while rushing to tailor a gown. She continues working because there's no one to cover her. The scissors weren't cleaned properly from a previous project. This unsanitary tool causes an infection to set in 2 days later. The wound became red, swollen, and increasingly painful, forcing her to seek medical treatment. She was off work for nearly a week, missing fittings, deadlines, and income, while the infection was treated with antibiotics and monitored for further complications. In garment factories and fast fashion houses, fabric dust and lint accumulation can lead to respiratory issues. Workers, many of them freelance or undocumented, are often left out of formal hazard reporting systems. That invisibility compounds the risk. And while we're talking physical hazards, don't forget the sharp tools. Seam rippers, shears, sewing machine needles, metal zippers, wire-framed bodices, boning, and underwire. These are everyday items, but in the wrong circumstances, they're injuries waiting to happen. Lighting rigs, another hanging hazard, are often suspended from above using outdated truss systems. Electrical cords also running underfoot. Rolling clothing racks are overloaded and unstable. At one high-end fashion show in Los Angeles, a wardrobe assistant was pinned against a wall by a rack that collapsed on a slope. She suffered 2 fractured ribs. In New York City, a male model fell down a stairwell after being told to run back up quickly for a reshoot. The stairwell lights had blown out earlier that day, and they had not been replaced. All of this is just the physical layer. Now let's peel back the emotional and psychological toll. A young designer in London shared anonymously that she hadn't slept in 3 days leading up to her Fashion Week debut. She was subsisting on caffeine and anxiety. After the show, she vomited backstage, not from nerves, but sheer exhaustion. No one offered help. In fact, she said it felt like they expected it. A makeup artist in Mumbai recalls being yelled at in front of an entire crew for not matching the look fast enough. She had 10 minutes to redo the entire face. Later that night, she cried in the washroom for an hour before going home. Psychological abuse is rarely documented in fashion because it often masquerades as high standards. But over time, it erodes confidence, sleep quality, and emotional well-being. Add in poor job security, constant travel, and aesthetic pressures, and you've got a mental health minefield. Models in particular are vulnerable to disordered eating, poor body image, and verbal harassment. In interviews, dozens of models across North America and Europe have reported being told they were too fat at a size 2 or too old at age 24. Some agencies now have wellness protocols, but many still don't. In South Korea, a young model died from cardiac arrest after reportedly working 3 back-to-back jobs with no rest. Her family later revealed she had been struggling with body image, dehydration, and extreme fatigue. In Canada, a fashion intern was hospitalized for exhaustion after working 3 weeks straight without a single full day off. Her tasks included carrying heavy garment bags between hotels and showrooms, cleaning up broken display sets, and operating a handheld steamer for hours at a time. In France, a backstage dresser suffered second-degree burns when a steamer tipped over next to her foot. No one had thought to label or secure the equipment. She kept working. The show had already started. So, what are the safety observations that matter here? It starts with something as simple as checking footwear, not just for fashion, but for mobility, grip, and comfort, especially before rehearsals or long shoots. Every lighting rig or backdrop should be inspected before use, particularly when things are built quickly and on the fly. Hydration and nutrition also matter. Scheduled breaks for water and meals, especially during all-day shoots or prep days, are not a luxury. They're essential for safety. The dressing and staging areas should be free from electrical trip hazards. Cables should be tucked away or clearly marked to avoid injuries when movement backstage becomes chaotic. First aid kits shouldn't be an afterthought. They should be present and accessible in every wardrobe, makeup, and backstage space. And it's not just physical first aid that matters. Mental health first aid training for production managers, assistants, and agents can make a real difference when someone starts to unravel under pressure. Inside design studios and workshops, the push for production must be balanced with reminders to rest, sit with proper support, and pace repetitive work. Finally, there must be clear, safe ways for people to report what went wrong, whether they're salaried employees or working a single freelance gig. Because safety observations don't mean much if there's no way to act on them. Fashion doesn't need to compromise on creativity to prioritize safety. In fact, the best-run shows, studios, and campaigns already know this. A safe artist is a thriving artist. And that's where you come in. If you're part of the fashion world as a model, designer, stylist, photographer, tailor, intern, or crew member, we want to hear your stories. What have you seen? What went wrong? What saved the day? Drop it in the comments. Subscribe to Safety Smart HQ for more deep dives into the realities of workplace safety across industries you may not expect, and to the people whose work often gets credited to the brand, not the hands behind it. Thank you. Thank you for showing up, creating beauty, and taking risks that most people will never even know about. Let's make those risks visible. Let's make the industry safer, together.